Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our launch of our 1 Million Turtles Community Conservation Program. We're really glad that you all can join us today, and we're going to have hopefully a really fun time talking about turtles. Really glad that everybody could make it today. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Just to start off with, we just have a couple of housekeeping things to discuss. First of all, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of the session, or the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions as we go, please type them into the Q&A box. You should see it if you hover your mouse cursor at the bottom of the screen. We will answer a selection of those questions with our panel at the end of the webinar. If your question doesn't get chosen, don't worry. We will be posting as many answers to those questions as possible on our website and also on our Facebook page after we're finished. Next, please. So to start off, I just want to introduce Jason Wilson, who's a Gamilaroi and Uillaroi man. He's going to do our Welcome to Country today. So please take it away, Jason.
Thanks, James. Is that the next slide up? Okay, it's the next slide. Next slide. Yes, acknowledgement of our ancestors. We would like to pay our respects to and acknowledge the ancestral owners of the land and the ancestral, as they call Australia their home. We also would like to pay respect to the elders, both past, present and emerging, of these ancestors, and extend the respect to the other ancestors present. I've got a photo there of my country, old school, stitched together. That's Burraguman or Narran lakes. It's called a number of words. Darawa is one, and Gigorodine. It's all a great place of reverence, and I dare say there'll be a lot of turtles in amongst that. But 11 to 12 years ago, there was an opportunity for a number of Aboriginal people down on the southern part of the basin to put together what was the definition of what cultural flows are, and they are a water entitlement that are legally and beneficially owned by Indigenous nations and are of sufficient and adequate quantity to improve the spiritual, cultural, environmental, social and economic conditions of Indigenous nations. This is our inherent right. So that's also a part of it. I'd like to believe a part of the ethos that Aboriginal people have in trying to reclaim a place, a foothold back into the water debate, and so central to that is the humble turtle. And again, it's embedded in our water resource planning, cultural flows. Next slide. So I'm going to attempt, I won't read the right-hand side of it. You can go through that, but I'm going to, it's important to have language when you talk about giving welcomes. It's really important to express your own language. So when I say Uillaroi, which I am a very proud Gamilaroi and Uillaroi man from New South Wales, Queensland, up on that border, it's important to express language when you're conveying the message to other traditional owners, and it's a nice way to open it. So, Yamaganu, hello everybody. Gid Uillaroi, Ngala, Ngalai, Maran, Ngawalai, Wunangalana. I acknowledge the Uillaroi people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. Gid, Wayama, Wunangalana, Ngini, Maran. We pay our respects to elders both past and present. Nyendalu, Yilara, Wunangalana, Ngini, and further extend the respect to others here today. Yilalu, Yilagiyu, Dagay, Marai, Uillaroi, Daima, Ngalai. So this land, this was and always will be Uillaroi land, long time, now and always. That's the time of Burugu, which is the dreaming. We embrace the spirits of reconciliation, the two-way learning, the capacity building of water literacy to close the gap, working towards equality and an equal voice for ancestral nations and its people. We endeavour to bridge that gap and recognise that the land and water on which Western science work and can proudly say always was and always will be ancestral land. We actively enjoy our wetlands. We love eating our wetlands. They are still here and they need a voice. Together, we are that voice for all to continue to enjoy it into the future. And go the humble turtle. Thank you, Yane.
Thanks very much, Jason. That's great. My name is James Van Dyke, and I'm going to introduce our program and our partners in our team. If I could have the next slide, please. So first off, I just want to talk about our partners. These are the organizations that are involved in this project. We've been lucky enough to have this project supported by a grant from the Australian government. It's a federal citizen science grant that's given us the ability to do this. And we represent a group of both academics and community organizers. And we're also supported by the Australian Reptile Park and the South Australian government. Next, please. And the academic team is myself, James Van Dyke. I'm from La Trobe University. I've been working on turtles for over 15 years, both here in Australia and in the US. Ricky Spencer, who's at Western Sydney University, and Deb Bauer, who's at the University of New England. So we put this grant together along with a few other folks. If I could have the next slide, please. Mike Thompson, who's emeritus professor at the University of Sydney, Anthony Santoro, Don McKnight, Jenna Condi, and Willem Rosenberg. And next slide, please. And our program coordinators and support are Gita Ortak, Dr. Sylvia Clark, and Courtney Monk. So that's our team. And now I just want to talk about the basis for our program, why we're doing what we're doing. Hopefully everybody here is interested in turtles, and that's why you've come. And you're probably aware of some of the fate that turtles are facing right now. So if I could have the next slide, please. Our Australian freshwater turtles are facing a bit of a crisis. So we have about 25 species, and of those, 11 are listed as vulnerable, threatened, or endangered. So that's about 44% of all of our species, and even the ones that are doing okay that aren't listed are still facing a number of additional threats that are potentially putting them at risk of extinction. So if we look here on this slide, we've got the fox in the middle representing our invasive predators. Both foxes and pigs eat a lot of turtle nests, and in some places they may be they are eating so many nests that we don't get any hatchling turtles entering the system. And so as that happens, as the older turtles die of old age or other causes, then those juveniles, the lack of those juveniles mean they're no longer replaced. And so our populations can disappear very quickly. The adult turtles also face threats. On the left, we've got a broadshell turtle that's been struck on a road. So car strikes are a really major source of mortality for adult turtles as they move overland to nest or between wetlands. And more recently, we've started to see the appearance of novel diseases, like we've got on the right, the Bellinger River sawshell turtle, showing the symptoms of the Bellinger River virus, which is a new virus that came up in 2015 and knocked that entire species almost to extinction on its own. And then we also have things like human habitat modification represented by the dam there. And things like drought, which are eliminating or reducing the availability of habitat for these turtles. So they face a number of threats. So a few other things too, like carp, which compete for them for food and change the wetlands. But the good news is, and the reason why we're here, is that there's still time to do something. So none of our turtles have gone extinct yet. Some of them are still present in relatively good numbers, even if they're declining and even if they're threatened. And so that gives us a bit of breathing space, and that gives us time to actually do some things to try to help save them. And what we want is to try to recruit as many people as we can from the community, because we need your help. We think that there's a lot of things that people can do to help save these animals. And to give you some ideas on that and some of the history behind the program, I'm going to turn it over now to Ricky Spencer.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming along. I want to talk to you about a project that we started quite a few years ago now, back in 2015, called TurtleSat. As biologists, as zoologists, we've been working, this team, a large section of this team had been working on freshwater turtles and looking at their decline. But it wasn't until we went talking to people and to see how extensive that was. So we came up with the idea of what we call TurtleSat. And so essentially what we were looking at is the citizen science tool when apps was really starting to come out to essentially get people involved and get people to actually record their sightings, to actually see how extensive the problem is. So I think we can move to the next slide. Sorry, I'm standing at the reptile park here and Tim Faulkner will be talking in a minute. I can't see the slides, but basically what I want to talk to you about is essentially where we're heading to with TurtleSat. TurtleSat's now been upgraded. So you can download the TurtleSat app and you'll get a completely different experience. And that went live probably about 30 minutes ago. So please download the TurtleSat app now. Go to your App Store or Google Play and download TurtleSat. So what we're looking for you to do, and what we now see as part of this Million Turtles program, is that TurtleSat's the gateway. TurtleSat gets you in, gets you excited about turtles, helps the scientists actually look where the problems are in terms of road mortality, in terms of nest predation, also in terms of early signs of disease, which are a major threatening process for many of our turtles. But what we want to do is that TurtleSat now is actually going to grow, and it's growing into the 1 Million Turtles program. And the 1 Million Turtles program is what we want to do is turn citizen scientists into active community conservationists. So I'm going to leave it here now. I want you to download TurtleSat. I want you to get involved in Turtle Month, which is today. Today starts Turtle Month. Today is where you will see turtles out and about. It's a great time of year to experience wildlife, but it's also the most critical and most dangerous period time of year for freshwater turtles. So please, I'm going to hand it back to Van and he can move on to it, but please download TurtleSat.
Thanks, Ricky. And I'm actually going to hand it on to Deb now. Thanks.
Thanks, Van. So the really cool thing about 1 Million Turtles is that it's designed so that everybody can get involved. We have got lots of different projects, next slide, with different options for people to cater to different levels of commitment, different levels of interest, different age groups and levels of education. And so we wanted to create ways in which the casual observer could contribute to turtle science and conservation, but also the diehards can get in and do lots of work, and there's lots of different options for involvement. Next slide. So for Turtle Month, which is November, we'd really love everybody getting out there and looking for signs of turtles. We call November Turtle Month because it's the month in which turtles nest in the highest densities. As the rains come in, as it gets warm, turtles will come out of the water and dig their little nest chambers and lay eggs inside. And so you might come across a turtle, a big female turtle laying her eggs or on her way to lay her eggs. You might come across a raided turtle nest or some turtle tracks. You might see some turtles on the logs. All of these are really good opportunities for you to log that turtle sighting, and then we can use that data to look at where different turtle species are, what they're doing, the threats that are threatening them, such as introduced species and roadkill. Next slide. For people who want to practice their turtle skills, the Australian Reptile Park has set up a turtle hub. And so if you want to take your kids along, if you want to practice using TurtleSat, you can go along and you can learn more about turtles, you can see them up close, and you can experience all their little cute eccentricities. Next slide. We also have a national nest predation survey. And so for people who are interested in doing a little bit of science, we're going to have the opportunity for you to go out and dig a hole, pop some eggs in it and see what predates it. Turtles face different levels of predation in different areas. Some people control foxes, some areas don't. There's different habitat. Up north, pigs are a problem. In other areas, bandicoots will get the nests. And so we're really interested to see how all these different nest predation rates vary across the country. And so in a really simple, easy method, you can go onto the website and check out how you can help us in this national predation survey. Next slide. We're also trying to expand on our Turtles in Schools program. So Ricky Spencer has been working with schools raising turtles for years, and we'd like to get more schools involved in conserving turtles and getting those turtles into the classroom so that kids can see them up close and really connect with those animals. And so in this way, we can get more baby turtles out into the environment and also give kids the chance to get up close and personal and experience the joy of turtles. Next slide. Last but least, we have our on-ground community initiatives. So if you're in a dead king community, if you're a landowner and you've got turtles on your property, or if you've got a wetland near you, there's a couple of ways you can get involved. People can protect individual nests. So when a turtle comes up and lays its eggs, we can pop some wire over that nest. And mesh nests, mesh wire covers are big enough that the hatchlings can get out, but hard enough that the foxes can't get in to predate on those nests. Or taking that to the next level, there are designer nesting beaches where we've developed floating islands that can go out into turtle habitat and then create an environment where the turtles can nest, but the foxes can't get to. So there's many different ways you can get involved depending on how keen you are and how much time you've got. And if you hop on the website, you can check that out. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Deb. Just a reminder that you have plenty of opportunities to ask questions during the panel Q&A. So if you have any as we go, I see a couple of questions are starting to pop up on the Q&A box. We will get to those after the keynote speakers. And we'll try to answer as many of those as we can. So now I'm going to pass it back to Ricky to introduce our first keynote speaker. Ricky, please.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim Faulkner here from Australian Reptile Park and Aussie Ark, and I'm going to throw it straight over to Tim because he's going to take you on a special tour. So over to you, Tim.
Ricky. Hi there, Tim Faulkner, Director, Australian Reptile Park and Executive Director, Aussie Ark. The Reptile Park is a wildlife tourism facility. Aussie Ark is a dedicated conservation facility. Both organisations are very committed to Australian native wildlife conservation. Our skill set is really captive management, and that's really complementary to turtles to addressing something like a major threat to fox, because we can captive breed, cut the fox out, and then through an incredible partnership like this, that's where our expertise ends, realistically. So you've got all these incredible applied or scientists using applied science, and that means getting the outcome. And that's what makes us very excited about the partnerships generally. We're very committed to freshwater turtles. A little bit of a nuanced approach in our region, in New South Wales. And for us, that's 3 species. There's also benefits to others, but that's the Manning River turtle, the Bells River turtle, and the Hunter River turtle are the 3 that we're specifically working with. I like making a mention here that when you think about those species or another, the Bellinger River turtle, there's less than 500 Bellinger River turtle, 500. And even of the other species I mentioned, there's thousands or low tens of thousands. And when you think about this, we know so much about pandas or orangutans or elephants. Consider this. There are 500,000 elephants still in the wild. There are 120,000 orangutans still in the wild. And there's less than 10,000 of most of these turtles. And they're typically not viewed as so sexy. But to us as Australians, they should be. They're really unique and they've been here for all of history. And that means they need our help. I want to talk about some recent experiences because they're still forefront of my mind. That 2019-20 wildfire season that we remember it as, you know, we really ticked into gear there in the wild and went into what we knew and populations that we knew of, turtles, particularly Hunter River turtles and Manning River turtles. The fires were bad. I mean, 1 billion animals lost, you know, just so catastrophic. But the drought was equally as bad. And so was the unsustainable harvest of water from rivers. I personally witnessed, pools that for all of history, through catastrophic droughts, over millennia, would have held water. We sucked them dry. And this is an important part where community gets involved, because community champions in local areas are important, because that's the type of person that can just, hey, just leave a bit of water there. But that's not what happened. And so we intervened, and, we saved over 500 turtles from imminent death in a hot, baking, muddy pond. Sadly, I found over 500 perish, deceased, because we couldn't be everywhere at once. But the more people out there in community, the better for all the turtles. I'd like to say we're here at the Reptile Park. It's a co-Reptile Park Aussie Ark initiative, of course, with this partnership, but noting again, our skill set is the captive management of these species to then complement what the scientists are doing. And I can't get this thought out of my head. 1 million hatchlings back in the wild. Just think about that for a minute and think of 1 million turtles somewhere, what does that even look like? But I can tell you what it looks like in our rivers, and it's a very, very pretty picture. Our facilities are quite unique in that we are a wildlife tourism facility, but the not-for-profit Aussie Ark, there's a big dotted line between us. And so, of course, people can come here and visit and experience turtles. But at the same time, with Ricky and this partnership, the ability to come here and learn about TurtleSat, the ability to come here and look at how to create nesting sites and other bits and pieces, that's what makes the citizen science part of it and the tools you can learn from it spectacular. And that's really, really exciting. Now, I'm going to do a really quick look around the facilities. We're limited for time, and I know you're just going to have to come and have a better look. I can only do my best. Behind me, we've got the Hunter River turtle. Now, there's only around 20 founders in here presently. They're going to be difficult to see, okay? So have a Google. Hunter River turtle lives in one river system in Australia. Come over this side. If you look down the back here, we've got a Bells River turtle facility. Very hard to see. I appreciate that. Come with me. Excuse the materials, but with the turtles, it's really important for their security and also for biosecurity. So this is lock and key facility. But what you can see behind us here is a Manning River turtle facility. It's home, not yet, but it will be at capacity at about 60 adult turtles. And if we need to make that 60, 120 or 300 to get the number of hatchlings that this project wants, then that's what we'll do. But the adults breed in very wild-like environments. The water's controlled, the water quality's controlled, the temperature's controlled. They've got their breeding sites, but come into the best part. Follow me again. I did mention around biosecurity. So this might just be the tiniest little bit clunky while I whip my boots off and get rid of them. Brody, there's your boots. I'm going to take your phone for a second. So we're in now to, and it'll be a little echoey, but we're into our turtle lab. And so this is where we incubate the eggs, and this is where the hatchlings are reared, ready to hand over to this project for release. Now, if you have a look just here next to me, you can't see anything. And this is because on the 12th of November, the first captive born Manning River turtles go back to the wild. The reason this is black is because we don't want them to see us. We don't want them to associate people with food, etc., etc. You get the idea. These turtles aren't being released until February. So you can come and have a little look here. And while you do that, I'm going to pop some gloves on. Have a look at this, bro. Back to me. So this is a 12-month-old Manning River turtle. They're one of Australia's most beautiful turtles. Really nice yellow markings. If you have a look at the bottom side of the shell, the plastron, they've got individual markings. You can actually identify the turtles by that. So they're a really stunning turtle. And this is a good size. I mean, remember, as I said, our skill set is captive breeding. but we need to hand these over now. And, you know, 1 million of these with many partners. But essentially, at this size as well, and this is called head starting, we can let them go tiny, 20 cent piece size. And this is up to the academics, scientists. But we can also let them go this size. And that can alleviate other threats like feral fish, carp or trout, or even native fish like bass and other things that might eat them, and give them the best chance for survival. Let's come back outside. You can leave those boots on road while we exit, and then I'll sort them out later. So thank you for a very rushed little tour. I guess before I hand over, I just want to compliment the integrity of this overarching program. People, get involved. I mean, this is a bunch and a team that's really applying science, and that means it has outcomes. Things get better for native wildlife, and that's my sincerest compliment. We're just happy to be a part of it. So thank you very much for that. Over and out, Tim Faulkner.
Thanks, Tim. That was really great. Can we have the slides back, please? Okay, Deb, we'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Van. It's my absolute delight to introduce Jason Wilson. Jason, as you've heard, is a Gamilaroi and Uluru ancestor and the local engagement officer for the Commonwealth Environmental Water Office. Jason works super hard to incorporate Aboriginal values into water initiatives, and he has dedicated his life to stop the intergenerational, cultural, spiritual, and economic genocide and provide equity for and empower Aboriginal people. Jason chairs the Narran Lakes Joint Management Committee with the Office of Environment and Heritage, tackling climate change adaptation. He loves sport, travel, fishing, good food, friends, having a yarn, and capacity building the broader Aboriginal community. Sounds pretty good to me. Last but not least, Jace loves his country and family. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Deb. The next slide, hopefully that comes up this time. There you go. I've only got one slide, so I'll talk to it. I'll talk all around it. So there's my very silly attempt to, with my bull roarer there, strapping a radio telescope or whatever you do with them now to track a turtle, a beautiful short-necked turtle shell that was left on the side of the riverbank. I'd say a fox might have got him or something like that. But there's a number of things of cultural value from Aboriginal people. And I've got to say up front, there's not a great deal of Western science that we understand about it. There's been this, I remember being in a forum where a bloke grabbed a ruler and said, our Aboriginal cultures is just a little bit like this ruler. It's very flexible. And then he broke it and it fell to pieces. And he's picking up those pieces. We can start to mend some of these pieces. And part of mending those pieces is to share each other's knowledge. And that two-way learning is very important, not only for me just now in the recent couple of weeks that I've been asked to come on here by Deborah, but you know, into the future with any work that we do. So some of those works that is Aboriginal people cultural values are out there. When I was talking to my auntie out of Colorinabri, she said it's a timepiece. You know, like the 13 large shell pieces that are in the middle part of they represent 28 days of the year, which makes up around 364 days of the year, or possibly whenever there's a different season occurring. So imagine having a nice big turtle shell up on top of your wall, giving you some idea of the month or the year, or certainly the change in the season. So binging, it's a rite of passage in the mountains back towards Tabulum, in those beautiful communities up there on the Clarence River. So the football team there is called the Tabulum Turtle Divers. And if you haven't been binging when you're a kid, you don't play for that side at all. So it's translating traditional culture, I suppose, back to the new way of looking at culture. And part of that new way of culture is, they say, football prowess is one of those things. So the young fellas have to go through as a part of being a boy to a man and learn how to bing, or binging they call it. And it's quite, they do it now with goggles, but back in the day they showed you, they blow the bubbles up under their eyes and they can use them as goggles in the water there. But I tell you what, it's a good day out. It's also considered women's business in the north. I'm saying the north, I mean right up into Kakadu and places like that, to harvest turtles in the dry season. So a good friend, a real turtle enthusiast, Enzo, talked about his experience up there when he was around, I think, Menengreta and places like that, where it was, because he was a unmarried man and he was doing all this turtle work and he had to go with the women to learn it. He had to, he was almost being married off every time he turned up. But he seen, a couple of his observations was that women did a lot of the harvesting of turtles, and it's a contrast when it's fun and not hard work that the men do it down here in New South Wales. So those women, hats off the women's, it's hard work, that turtle harvesting. Yeah, so it's definitely a food. It's the same as the yellow snow principle applies here around my country. You do not eat the long neck ones. It's the tasty short neck ones that we chase, and you just ask the turtle eaters over there in Charleville. I can safely say that around here we don't eat those turtles as much as our counterparts in the neighbouring catchment. But I think once we learn more about the program or the projects, we'll be able to assist in not only propagating them and getting them free, and we might be able to get back to a point where we can harvest and eat too. It's a water creator or a feature in the country. There are many stories of turtles, not only in my country but in neighbouring countries. Plenty of Dreamtime stories of the turtle being flipped over and appears as mountain ranges, or the water that spills from rain still comes through either porous rock springs or sphagnum swamps. But it's all about that, the ability for the turtle to present and hold water or be present near water. So it's quite a wonderful attribute that the turtle still immortalised in some features in the landscape. It's a protector. My creation story, and I don't know if you got the first slide when I gave the welcome to country, is Narran, the Narran Lake system. So Nyanaba is the red-bellied black snake, and Wayamba is the turtle, and they are the protectors of that country. So part of that creation story, Burugu. So it's important that they have a place in the landscape. And not last but not least, but language from country. My language is quite extensive here. We've kept a lot of our language, and we're learning it through school. My son learned it right through from year 2 right through to year 6. He's gone into high school and they don't do it there, which is a real shame. But the long-necked turtles are called Girafiri. It should be an A there after that, Girri. And so that's what we call the short neck, and the long neck, and the short necks we call Wayamba and Yarrabah. So there's a nice, again, talking about that landscape feature, there's a park just outside of a national park just outside of Tamworth, which is called Warrabah, and that is the home of where the birth of the short-necked turtle before he came down the Namoi and started populating a lot of the rivers out this way here. And probably the last thing that I'd throw up there, what does turtle taste like? I put a question mark in amongst that. I don't know what turtle tastes like. I've never tasted the turtle. I'd love to taste the turtle. I've dodged a turtle experience, or tortoise experience, I suppose, on the coast. And I don't know if I could bring myself to eating one, but I'll from a cultural perspective, I think I might have to. But also on where rocks are, and out our way, we don't have a great many mountain ranges. We have flat, beautiful black soil plains. So we depict them when we do our ceremonies as on the ground. So we make mounds and make the shape of the turtles. We do have small stone arrangements that we have on country back out behind me, if you want to call it, to the north at Angledool, and we depict the turtles that way. But it's nice to see. I grabbed a photo off the net of turtles being depicted on rock paintings. That's wonderful. And there's also a picture there, some Aboriginal people down in the south that are working with the Mer teams down there, or possibly, the Living Murray, that they do a fair bit of turtle research down there, and I think they thoroughly enjoy their time at it. But all I want to do is, when Deb comes out to country, I want to learn how to build a turtle island. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to learn about turtles, but also impart some of my turtle knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. That's great. Really love it. Hopefully we can get more and more people involved like you on these kinds of projects as we go. All right. Kind of the next. Thank you. So now we just want to talk about some of the ways that you can get involved. Deb's talked about some of that earlier, but I want to present a few calls to action, what we really want to highlight out of this webinar. Next, please. So the first thing that I want to do is encourage you to download TurtleSat. Again, as Ricky said, it's a brand new version that's just come out, and it's available for both iPhone and Android to download now. Basically, as soon as you can, download it and get out there and start looking for turtles and start looking for turtle nests and record what you see, because every little bit of data that you can send in for us really, really helps. One of our collaborators, Geeta, asked me a couple of weeks ago for an estimate of kind of what's the value of this kind of project. And when we go out and do our turtle trapping, it's a pretty expensive process. And so any data that we can get that comes in from the community to tell us where turtles are, where you're seeing turtles, where you're not seeing turtles, that's really, really valuable to us, because it gives us an idea of what's there already. So that's something you can do now. You can also enter data on a PC or a Mac online just as easily. You can do either way if you like. Next, please. Here's the QR code for the TurtleSat. So it will work now. If you want to take your mobile phone and try to scan that right now, I'll give you a couple seconds and just leave that up, I guess. One of the other things that is really important for TurtleSat and also our website, 1 Million Turtles, which I'll talk about in a minute, is it gives us a way to get in touch with you as well. So I'm not sure if you saw on the slide that Ricky showed, but we've used TurtleSat not only to collect data on turtles, but we've also used it to collect data from people about what they like about it and what they don't like about it. And so those are some of the things that we've used to upgrade TurtleSat in this current version. Next slide, please. Okay, the second call to action is please visit and bookmark 1millionturtles.com, and this will help you to be informed of the upcoming exciting events and opportunities to get involved in. For example, we've talked a little bit about a national nest predation experiment, and the basic idea there is one of the scientific things that we do to see what the impact of foxes and pigs are on turtles is we dig holes in the ground and put chicken eggs in and see how fast those nests, those fake nests, get dug up by foxes. And in some places that we work, the foxes hit them within 24 to 48 hours. And so you know that the foxes are a really big problem in those areas. So that's something that we want to give some training on, because there's some animal ethics issues, but those opportunities will come up on the website. A similar opportunity will be how to protect turtle nests using mesh. So that's something that anybody can do. Both of these are things that anybody can really do. And then we're also going to be presenting information about our Turtles in Schools program. So when these come live, what we're going to do is we're going to start with some training videos that will be accessible by people who register for them. We don't want just anybody doing it, because we need to regulate them for the animal ethics legislation. But it will be easy to register, it will be easy to access, and it will be easy for you to do those if you're interested in them. We will be contacting people via email, the emails that you've provided during registration, which you can unsubscribe to or unsubscribe from at any time. But when those become live, we'll send out emails to let you know that those opportunities are available. And the National Nest Predation Experiment, that should be up in the next month or so is when we want to get that started. Because then hopefully you can help us see how bad the fox and pig problems are across a much larger area of Australia. Next slide, please. The third call to action is if you see a turtle crossing a road, if it's safe to do so, it's really important. You want to look both ways and not walk into traffic. You want to protect yourself first. Is if you see a turtle crossing, please just help it across to the other side in the direction that it's heading. That's the best thing to do. We don't want you to pick them up and move them to another wetland or river. That turtle's probably been walking across that area since before the road existed. There's a good chance of that. So it knows where it's going, and it's best to just help it on its way. And we really emphasize this because this is a major cause of adult mortality. So a lot of adult turtles get smashed on the roads, and anything we can do to help them avoid that fate will help populations as well as protect that one turtle. Next, please. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed everything that we've talked about so far. What we want to do is start doing the Q&A. And I know there's a few questions to pop up. This will last about 20 minutes. And as I said before, I don't think there's heaps of questions, so I think we'll be able to get through most of them. But if we don't get to your question in the time that we have available, we will address that question on our Facebook page and also on an upcoming FAQ page on our website. So we like these kinds of ideas because if you have a question, there's a really good chance that a lot of other people have that same question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off your questions and I'm going to pose them to one person on our panel. If I could have our next question to see the panel, please. So this is the list of people. I'm not going to answer any questions myself because we've got such a good big group of folks here. So what I'm going to do is try to think of the best person to answer each of the questions that come up. So the first question I've got is, how is Western Australia involved in the 1 Million Turtles program? And I think Anthony Santoro is our Western Australia representative, so I'll pass that question on to him. Anthony, can you answer that one, please?
All right, hi. So in WA, we've got the Saving Our Snake Neck Turtles program, which is how we're basically involved with 1 Million Turtles. So that is essentially, it's the overarching project that we have, which is where we're trying to expand turtle trackers throughout the southwestern snake neck turtle, which is the WA1's range. And so Turtle Trackers is a citizen science program that has been developed and fine-tuned over the past 3 years with help of City of Coburn and a few other partners. And so now we're integrating the use of the TurtleSat app, which is part of the 1 Million Turtles as well. And so essentially I work with local councils and we train dedicated kind of turtle trackers, and then they go around to their local wetland during nesting season and they help us with finding the turtles and they protect the nests. And essentially we've got like a network. So if a turtle tracker sees a turtle, they can let it send out like an alert to all the other turtle trackers. So then we can get heaps of people down there, protect as many nests and females as we can. And so over the few years, that program has been pretty successful at reducing predation of both the females and nests. So yeah, we're really interested and hoping that lots of local councils join in and we can kind of go throughout WA.
Thanks, Anthony. Next question, why are tortoises called freshwater turtles? This is a question we get a lot. Arthur, can you help us with that one, please?
I guess the British terminology was to call marine turtles turtles, and anything that moved over land or was in fresh waters was called a tortoise. And Australia adopted that for a long time, but the international sort of consensus is that now we call tortoises are restricted to those things that walk around on club feet in the desert, and turtles are anything that swim. And so we now tend to call them freshwater turtles and marine turtles, and Australia doesn't have any land tortoises. So it's just the way things have changed over time.
Thanks, Arthur.
I get asked that question a lot, and I say it's all in the spelling.
Thanks, Arthur. I would also say, from our perspective, a lot of times we don't mind if you call them turtles or tortoises. It comes across either way. Next question we've got. How big do the hatchlings have to be before they're released into the wild? Don McKnight, I'll pass that one on to you. What do you think about that one?
So it's a really good question. And there's a lot of different approaches people have taken. The trade-off is the bigger the turtle is when you release it, the less likely it is to get eaten by something, and the more likely it is to survive to adulthood. But also, it's a lot more work to rear them up to that point. And so the key is really finding that balance between sometimes it's best just to release them as soon as they hatch. Sometimes it's best to rear them up in captivity for a while. And you really just want to balance those costs of rearing and the likelihood that the turtle is going to survive in the wild once it's been released.
Great, thanks, Don. Mike, I'll pass this one on to you. With turtles usually returning to the same nesting spot, how do we encourage them to nest on a floating area or alternative safe spot?
Thanks, Van. Yeah, the freshwater turtles don't necessarily return to the same nesting places year in year. So a river, for example, is a fairly dynamic environment. So where there might be a nesting beach this year is not going to necessarily be a nesting beach in 10 years' time after the next big flood. So they're fairly flexible in where they nest. If we set up the islands with the sort of right physical cues in terms of vegetation and access to the water and so on, they definitely nest in there.
Thanks, Mike. Marilyn, I'll pass this one to you if you're there. What do you do if you find a turtle that has been hit by a car and is injured but still alive? The person who asked says, I always take them to the vets. Are you there, Marilyn? I heard your microphone came on for a second. She may be having some technical difficulties, so I'll step in for her on that. What we do recommend that you take an injured turtle to a vet wherever possible. The veterinarian is the best person to make a judgment on what kind of treatment that they might need, or if they're beyond treatment. Interestingly, one of the things that sometimes happens with adult females that are hit when crossing a road, if they are gravid, so if they have eggs inside them and the eggs are not damaged, the vet may be able, if the turtle has to be euthanized, they may be able to rescue the eggs. And if the eggs are in good shape, they may still survive and develop and hatch. So it's really important to take them to a vet if you can. Ricky, next one I'll send to you. Is the mesh that we place over the nests plastic or metal? And could foxes dig up or break the plastic mesh?
Hello, thanks for the question. Ideally, it is a plastic mesh. So Turtles Australia, which Graham is here, he's come up with an awesome way of actually protecting nests using pretty much that, you know, that green lattice that you can buy at like Bunnings, and that plastic mesh. It works really, really well. Although Graham and we've had some issues with some problematic foxes. They've been able to get in, but very few. A metal mesh. They've tried a different metal mesh. Graham might want to jump in and actually have a discussion about that too, or we can take that. Ask Graham at Turtles Australia the question as well.
Thanks, Ricky. Unfortunately, I don't think Graham has made it in, but we can definitely pass that question on and get his take on it, that we can post on the website or on Facebook somewhere. Jason, I'll send this question to you. Oops, sorry.
Comment briefly on that. I think the key consideration is to make sure that you have the mesh that stops the foxes getting in, but still allows the hatchlings to get out. So you want to be careful about the size of the mesh that you put on, and if you make it a 5 metre square and pin it down, it's pretty hard for a fox to dig in that far. So you're not going to monitor them all the time. You've got to be very careful you don't trap little hatchlings under the mesh when they hatch out.
Yeah, those are good points, Arthur. Thanks. Really good points. And I think Turtles Australia, if I can speak for Graham if he's not here, is they use a mesh that is about has 5 centimeter squares, so it should be big enough for hatchlings to get through. But as Arthur said, you definitely want to be careful to check it. Sorry, Jason, I'll come back to you. Would First Nations people only eat turtles at a certain time of year, or would they eat them any time of year?
Well, I think Australia being so big, it's sort of hard to answer that question only on a regional basis. Around here, they're not being eaten at all, but you go to places where they do eat them. The dry season, they chase them. So when it's wet, it's opportunistic. You'd have to ask directly the nations that would eat them from certain parts of the regions, whether it be the north or the south. And certainly I can give you my anecdotes from around here. They're not been eaten much at all.
Thanks, Jason. There's a question I think we've covered about what size mesh, hole size do we recommend. I also have a student who's working on testing some of that mesh this year. So hopefully we can get back to you on that question, all of those questions as well in the future. Ricky, I'll come back to you again with this one because it's a TurtleSat question. How can people identify the turtles near them to record into the app, especially if they have several species in their area?
Yeah, the beauty of TurtleSat is that it recognises your location. And so we've built it so that the species, to a large extent, that are in your area. So it's not, we've essentially got about 7 or 8 different regions across Australia where it'll actually come up with the species that are likely to be in your area. But the other thing is that you can actually click on See Image and it'll actually show you a photo before you record it. And if you're still unsure, the best thing is take a photo and you can upload that photo and just click Unknown. If you're not sure what it is, we can identify it for you and update that in your list. So range of different ways to actually help you identify the species, and we can validate it with the photo as well.
Thanks, Ricky. And I've got another one for you. Since you've been working on some of the animal ethics applications, is there a minimum age for the nest experiment?
In terms of doing the nest, the nest survey, the nest predation experiment?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what it's getting at. Yep.
Yeah, so we're going through that process at the moment. I think it would be important for to be of at least 16 and out there, but basically I don't think it'd be an issue if you're out there with a parent or someone else. And obviously with this, we really want people working with pairs, but we're going through that process right now so that, next year will be the point that to actually, get out there. And guess the most important thing is you'll actually go through a training module. You'll actually see what to do. You'll sign up. We'll actually have to give you a little test to actually make sure that you've gone through that training manual as well. So stay tuned for that.
Thanks, Ricky. Deb, I'll go to you with this one. I lost it. How long is the in-ground incubation period for turtle eggs?
That's a great question, and it does depend slightly on the species. So I worked on the broad-shelled turtle for my PhD, and those guys will stay in the ground for up to a year. But most turtle species, just a few months. And so for turtles that will be laying their eggs tomorrow, we'll be expecting them to hatch in January and February. So usually just over summer when it's nice and warm and humid, and then they pop out with just enough time to fatten up before it gets cold again.
Thanks, Deb, and I'll stick with you for the next question. Sorry, I misread a name. Is there a contact person in the Taree for programs for the Manning River turtle?
That's a great question again. And what I would say is you can contact anyone, you can contact us through the website on our general email, and that will get directed to whoever's the most relevant person. There's lots of people, there's a good group in Taree working on the Manning River turtle, and so if you contact us through our general email on the website, we can put you in contact with who that person is and hook you up as needed. Thanks.
Thanks again, Deb. Wouldn't 1 million turtles need a lot of area to live? Is this danger assessed? Mike, I think this one might be really good for you since you did some biomass estimates back when you were starting some of this work in the 80s, didn't you?
Yes, thanks, Van. My expertise is really on the Murray, and I can tell you that we have lost more than 1 million turtles from the Murray. So 1 million turtles I'm envisaging as just the start. And of course, I'm just talking about the Murray. Doesn't it include the Darling or all the tributaries of the Darling? And it does include all those east flowing rivers that we've been hearing about with Bells, Manning and Bellinger River turtles and so on as well. So there's plenty of room for turtles, and we're still going to be short. So as I said, I think I'm looking at this as step one.
Thanks, Mike. Another question, will you be monitoring hatchlings or released turtles as any measure of success for the project or other measures? I think I'll take that one. In addition to this project, so the 1 Million Turtles project, we also have co-running an ARC linkage grant, which has some support from a number of partners across Southeastern Australia. And one of the things that we are going to do in that project is mark hatchlings for release so that we can recapture them and identify them. And we also are going to put small radio tags on some of them so that we can track them for the first about 100 days or so after they hatch. Unfortunately, because of their size, the battery life on the tags is pretty limited, but we know very little about hatchling turtle ecology and biology. So this is an opportunity for us to, when hatchlings are released, to see where they go, what they do, and what their actual survival rate is like once they get to the water. So we have a lot of estimates about things like that, but hopefully we can get some good data on that alongside this project. Deb, I'll come back to you with another one. Another question, how can I help in my local area of Mount Isa?
That was a question from Lara Butler. Hello, Lara Butler. Do you know people of all ages can help? And if you're a young girl who's interested in turtles, then that's awesome because we need more women in science. So the best way to help is to study hard at school and to do what your parents tell you to do, but also to get out there. In Mount Isa, you've got the fossil turtle in Lawn Hill Gorge, that's a few hours drive away. So you should get your mum and dad to take you camping, and then you can try and find the turtles in the rivers, but be careful not to get eaten by crocodiles. Thanks, Lara.
Thanks, Deb. Another question, and Lauren, if you're there, I'll pass this one to you. How do you determine if a turtle is male or female?
Me. I don't know that bit. Ricky, over to Ricky.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Hey guys, can you repeat the question, please?
How do you tell the difference between a male and female turtle, Ricky?
Well, it depends on the species. The short necks in general the males have a longer tail, and they're a bit smaller. But the common long neck that everyone sees, even the experts find it really, really hard to tell the difference. So, but the females are bigger, and so the biggest ones out there are the females. But if you're comparing similar sized males and females, like smaller, it's really, really hard to tell the difference because tail size isn't distinctive there.
Thanks, Ricky. We've got a question. How many places have turtle habitat islands? So that's something that is also part of our linkage project, which is only just now getting started. So right now there's one area that I'm aware of. Ricky can confirm this for me or tell me if I'm wrong, in Blue Mountains. But we hope to have several more sites in Southeastern Australia with some of our partners. So we're still finalizing those details, but we need to test them and make sure that they work. And once we have a good design for them, that's something that we will be sharing with community groups to install, as long as they work, fingers crossed. Another question I'll pass to Don. What is the age span or how the lifespan of turtles?
So that's variable, and in some cases we don't know, but most turtles live for many decades, depending on the species, well over 50 years in a lot of cases. But it's hard to keep track of that thing for a long term, so there's still some knowledge gaps there about just how long they typically reach in the wild, but several decades at least in most cases.
Thanks, Don. I think I'll put this question to Graham since Graham's there now. Graham, what do you know that causes eggs or hatchling turtles to die in the nest before they can come out?
Okay, I hope the audio is coming through okay because our internet's a bit dodgy up here. But in one case, we found a nest that had been in, the hatchlings had been entombed. So the ground was so hard that the hatchling simply couldn't dig out. And it was a nest of, I think we pulled out 19 dead hatchlings, and they'd been underground entombed for quite some time because we've had other nests that have been nearly 2 years old that have had live hatchlings in it. So that's one cause. The sort of the polar opposite is the nest being too wet, where the eggs have basically failed because they've rotted in the nest, and we're finding eggs that are in the top of a nest seem to be having a slightly higher failure rate in the last few years. It's more an anecdotal observation than anything else, but we're just finding more individual eggs out of a clutch failing, and they seem to be the eggs at the top of the clutch. So I assume that's because the ground is warmer.
Thanks, Graham. That's great. But a concerning problem that, we're trying to look into more over the next couple of years, definitely. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to end with a final question, but I really appreciate everybody's participation. The last question I think is important. The person asked, I have a large farm dam in the Mount Lofty Ranges in SA, and they also happen to have an enormous short-necked turtle that is now 23 years old. Could my turtle be released into the dam, perhaps with other turtles, in order to give it a more natural life and to breed? This has some issues with it, or the idea. I understand why you may want to do that, but there's two concerns there, or potentially three concerns. One is a biosecurity risk. So if the turtle's picked up some kind of exotic pathogen somehow through food or exposure to other animals, you could accidentally introduce that to that area. There might also be incompatible, or it might not be the correct genetics for that area, which is another biosecurity issue. And then the third issue that you could run into with something like that is the permitting. So legally, we're not supposed to release animals unless we've got a permit, a license to do so. And there's a really strict process in most states to go through to do that. And that's something that we're working through with any of our head starting projects that we'd like to do. And it's a lot of work, but it's something that we definitely want to have in place before we or as we release hatchlings into the wild. So there's some issues about that, and I wouldn't recommend doing it, but try to give that turtle a nice, happy life in captivity as much as you can would be my recommendation.
Van, could I just add that the shortnecks are not native to the Mount Lofty Ranges either, so you'd be introducing a species that is not native to there.
Thanks, Mike. For some reason, I read that as long neck in my head, which would have been native. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so with that, I just want to close with a couple of just reminders of the calls to action. So can I go to the next slide, please? And just a reminder, any questions we haven't gotten to will be posted either, we'll try to answer them on Facebook or on the FAQ page of the 1 Million Turtles website. So we really want to thank everybody for attending, and we hope that this program has engaged and inspired you to help us protect our Australian turtles and stop them from going extinct. Next slide, please. So just to recap, how can you get involved? Next, please. Again, please download the new version of TurtleSat, which has been just upgraded for today, and start going out and finding turtles and turtle nests to report. Next, please. Here's the QR code, and next. Also, like we said before, please visit and bookmark 1millionturtles.com. And just a reminder, we will be contacting people via emails that you've registered with to let you know about when the training modules for the National Nest Predation Experiment and Turtle Nest Protection Methods are available, and also to keep you informed of the Turtles in Schools program as it develops. And you can unsubscribe from those at any time if you are no longer interested. Next, please. And again, if you see a turtle crossing a road and it's safe to do so, and emphasize unsafe there, we really have to make sure that nobody gets hurt saving a turtle. Please move that turtle in the direction that it's heading, just across to the other side, and just help it on its way. And it will thank you for doing that, maybe by peeing on you a little bit, but that's just the way they say thanks. So just move them across and let them keep going on their way. Next, please. So just to end on this, thank you all for attending. We really do appreciate your interest and your participation in the program. We hope to see you soon and let you know with more of the project ideas that we would like you to be involved in. Here's where you can stay in touch with us. So we have our Facebook page, which is TurtleSat. There's also going to be, or there is a 1 Million Turtles Facebook page. There's also a TurtleSat Twitter feed, which you can access as well. And then finally, there's 1 Million Turtles, the website and email address. So if you would like to take a screenshot of this, we'll leave it up as we close. And I hope that everybody has a good evening, and I hope you enjoy Turtle Month, getting out and seeing nesting turtles this November. Hopefully you see a bunch, and hopefully they are not all being eaten by foxes. But those are the challenges that we face. So thanks again, everybody. We really do appreciate your support, and enjoy the rest of your week.